It's said that patience is a virtue. We've met one car company that would certainly agree. That's this week on Motoring 2000.
TSN's Motoring 2000 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them, and Midas Car Care, the way it should be.
How do you like my new shirt sporting a vehicle known as a Woody because of the wooden paneling along the side? Well, you know, back in the 40s and 50s, if you had a family, this is the kind of vehicle you were traveling in, better known as a station wagon. In fact, if your dad owned a wagon, it was actually considered cool. But the kids grew up and all but abandoned the wagon for minivans and sport utilities. But you know, there's at least two car companies that have always remained loyal to the wagon. One is Volvo and the other one is Subaru. And these days for Subaru, life couldn't be better. And it's all thanks to a wagon and a certain movie star.
Get ready for the ride of your life.
Just another day in the Outback.
Hogan Outback. Coming to Subaru dealers everywhere.
Well, it's supposed to be the Australian Outback, but it's in Bakersfield, California. Because when we shot the commercial, I was in the Bahamas doing Flipper, the movie. So I couldn't fly back to Australia, so we come up and shot it in Bakersfield in California, pretended it was the Australian Outback. But it's the same sort of country. I think it's the best kept secret in America. It's an excellent car. Oh, it's cool. I mean, I've got a couple of free cars as well.
The Paul Hogan commercials and the Outback commercials and the chase scenes is the way we started with Grand Cherokees and Blazers, and I think we even had an Explorer in there a couple of times. And Paul just made a nice comparison to what the Subaru would do and what the other guys would do, and it kind of made sense to a lot of people. It worked for us. We've had 4 years in a row, 48 months of consecutive month-over-month sales increases. It's something we're real proud of. You know, it shows that people are starting to realize what we've been saying about all-wheel drive and the way it works and the way we're going and our wagons, our Outback. It's working for them. And it's just going to grow with this new 2000 Outback we got coming out.
Well, the legacy and the Outback are what Subaru's all about. The Outback has put us back on the map. We've always been an all-wheel drive company, and finally people are seeing that all-wheel drive is both a fun thing to have and a safe thing to have. We've been saying that for years, but thank God people have actually come around to it now.
So many companies dropped the wagons. There are very few companies left that are doing wagons. If you like a wagon, you probably will have to settle for a very expensive wagon, and then there's a very small market of what's left of wagons. Some people would like to have a vehicle that is smaller but has the same kind of capacity to carry things as a minivan, and the station wagon is most probably the vehicle that people would need. It's really at the right time right now. It's making the right comeback.
The Legacy is the base platform for it, and that's our regular vehicle for anyone that needs a wagon generally. That's our most popular one. And then the Outback is built up on that to have higher ground clearance and more of cottage-going people. And again, an SUV, you've got to be careful with that. It's a truck, basically. What Subaru's always been about is safety first. And safety means you need independent suspension, you need a good handling vehicle, you need something that you'll be able to avoid cars with, accidents, whatever else. Crash standards, rollover standards, all that sort of stuff are much more stringent for cars than they are for trucks.
While Subaru has increased passenger and cargo space for 2000, the 2.5 single overhead cam 4-cylinder boxer engine still offers the most torque and horsepower at 165. The question is, will we ever see a 6?
Yeah, the 6 is definitely on the line. It's been We've been trying it for technical services, which is what I'm part of. We've tried it 2 years ago, last year, and now we're hopefully going to be introducing it next year. That's up to the people in the marketing and sales, though. I can tell you that it's a heck of an engine. It'll do very nicely, be about a 3-liter, and it's nice and torquey and everything else you want from a nice little 6. Flat 6, of course, because they're the best engines going.
What Subaru has done is really niched itself with its 4-wheel drive and its Outback, and it has really provided people with a wagon utility, car or sedan driving characteristics, and the off-road capability of 4-wheel drive. And many people like that, but they don't want to go the full route to a sport utility.
The wagon back to stay now?
Well, the wagon will be ours forever. That's our bread and butter. I mean, without the wagon, we wouldn't be selling too many cars.
This car is an absolute delight to drive, whether you're thrashing it for all it's worth or just out for a lovely cruise like this on a sunny afternoon. Back in 1963, Honda introduced the S500, a tiny chain-driven front-engine rear-wheel drive roadster. To celebrate their 50th anniversary, yet another roadster. This time around, the S2000.
The only transmission offered is the sweetest 6-speed manual gearbox. The reasons are simple. The throws measure just 14mm, the clutch is light progressive and has the bite point in the perfect place. To add longevity to the design, the gear sets are lubricated by an oil pump. Most rely upon splash lubrication, which is a hit-and-miss method of keeping the gears and bearings well oiled.
You know, when it comes to the body, the S2000 has got a high point and a low point. The high point is the structural rigidity of this car. There is zero cowl shake, and indeed it's tighter than either the Z3 or the Boxster. The low point, this plastic rear window. Now somehow Mazda can put a proper heated glass window in a $30,000 Miata, and Honda can't in a $50,000 car?
The secret to the strong platform is a high-strength X-frame that's supplemented with large outriggers and a reinforced central tunnel. As usual, Honda use a fully independent double wishbone suspension design that's been tailored to suit the S2000 in that it's designed to fit within the wheels, which minimises the intrusion into the usable spaces of the car. The suspension calibration delivers a good blend between handling and ride requirements. It's firm enough to support sporty driving habits, but supple enough to deliver decent comfort.
You know, this engine is a truly remarkable piece of engineering because at 120 horsepower per litre, it boasts the highest specific output of any naturally aspirated or non-turbocharged engine in the world. It should come as no surprise either, because the guy that designed this, well, he was the mastermind behind Honda's highly successful Formula One engine.
The secret to the elevated output is an upgraded version of Honda's variable timing and lift electronic control, or VTEC. Below about 5,500 or so RPM, the intake valves are opened by a cam profile designed to maximise low-end pull. Exceed 5,500 RPM, and the two rocker arms, one for each intake valve, are mechanically locked to a third that follows an aggressive high-lift cam, allowing the engine to ingest the quantity of air that's needed to satisfy the demand.
As with any good roadster, the S2000 comes with a fabulous set of seats. The radio hides behind its own little flap, which keeps prying eyes off it when you've got the top down. There is, however, one sore point, and that's the digital speedo. It flicks from 118 to 119 to 120 and becomes a distraction. It spoils an otherwise excellent execution. Gripe aside, I like the redundant controls to the radio, and to start things off, punch that button.
Throw the anchor out and the S2000's four-wheel disc brake setup scrubs off speed in an efficient manner. Even after a couple of fast stops, the pedal retains its crispness, showing little in the way of fade.
What a way to celebrate 50 years. This car is an absolute delight to drive, whether you're thrashing it for all it's worth or just out for a lovely cruise like this on a sunny afternoon. This car is going to be very difficult competition for both the Boxster and the Z3.
Time to update our long-term Saturn. So far, little to complain about. The 1.9-liter four-banger pumps out 124 horsepower, accelerates well, and handles okay, although the ride can feel a little unsettled over rough roads. Engine noise has been dampened considerably from previous models. Now, it says here coupes are really built for two, but the third door, a first in the industry, makes for easy access for groceries and kids. But for grown-ups, well, it would simply be cruel and unusual punishment. You know, I've been driving this 99 Mustang SVT Cobra for the past few days, and people have been asking what I think of it, and for a muscle car, it's pretty good. But I do have one complaint, and that is, I think it needs a little more horsepower. You know what? I'm not alone. The Cobra is built by Ford's specialty vehicle team, and is powered by a 4.6-liter V8 with 320 horsepower. But Ford began receiving complaints from owners who believed the engine fell short of that 320 rating. Ford checked it out, and the owners were right. Ford traced the problem to the engine's intake manifold and its exhaust system. Simply put, the engine was not receiving enough airflow and was losing up to 50 horsepower. Ford has recalled over 5,000 Cobras sold to fix the problem.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns tire rotation. Why do you rotate tires? Well, there's a number of different reasons. First of all, on a car like this, a front-wheel drive car, there's a huge discrepancy in tire wear between the front and the rear. The fronts wear out twice as quickly as the rears. So by rotating, you're leaving up the wear on a set of 4 tires. Now also, tires wear differently by wheel position. Fronts, for example, tend to wear more quickly on the edge just from aggressive cornering. And rears tend to get a bumpy wear pattern if they're left on the rear of many of today's cars without being rotated. They'll get what we call cupping, produces a lot of noise, and it can quickly ruin a set of tires. Now the window for tire rotation is usually somewhere between 12 and 20,000 kilometers, depending on the vehicle manufacturer. Check yours out and see when it's recommended. There are a few exceptions to this rule. There's a few cars with unidirectional tires and special wheels and tires front to rear where rotation isn't possible. On those cars, as a matter of fact on all cars, alignment will be very important because you don't want the tires to wear unevenly. That's your Midas tip of the week.
There are people dying out on that highway, but it's no accident. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
The Z is an interesting car. It's not one that we find people restore to ultimate perfection in the way it was right off the showroom floor. What we're finding is a lot of people, right back to when the first car came out, they modify them and they have fun. They make them very fast, modify the suspension, they make the car their own. And you'll see here, if you look at a lot of these cars, they're not factory original, they've been modified, and they're meant to be driven, and people drive them all the time.
We're looking at 365 horsepower, 0 to 60 in about 5.1, 60 to 0 on the brakes at about 112 feet, quarter mile in about 13.4, 13.5. Modified in the interior with a custom changes on the leather, the sound system, navigation system, dual radar system, so it's pretty complete as it sits now.
My car is a 1971 Datsun 240Z. I had test driven a number of sports cars, and this was the one that I liked. Everywhere I go, my car draws attention. And one of the things I think is because of the lines. As I said, they're ageless. And I've kept it all this time because, in my view, it's the best car Nissan has ever built.
Personally, I'm delighted to see a car of this sort coming out. I've been a car enthusiast all my life. I've written about cars for 30 years as a journalist and as a public relations person. And I can't wait to get my hands on it.
A replacement car would have to have something in common with the earlier car to bring people back. And it's a lot of people have had Zeds over the years. There's been thousands and thousands sold. So people are anticipating to see what it's going to look like and when it comes out. I'm sure it's going to look great though. The future of the Zed, I think, is very strong. I think you can see with the fans now, the cars that they have, the future car that's coming out. We have all new people wanting to come into the family. This show gets bigger, it's the 5th year. So yeah, the future is bright and it just gets better all the time.
Journalists will continue to test drive the new Subarus at a place they like to call here in Calgary, Canada's finest racing facility. It's better known as Race City, and there's something for every racing fan here, only a short drive from the city of Calgary. They've got an oval track, a drag strip, and a road course, and they tell us from May till December there is something going on here every single weekend, and this place is packed. All right, it's now time to join Bill in the garage, and you know, we've really got a 3-ring racing circus here. And Bill, if you had a choice of one ring, which one would it be?
Well, Brad, I bet you thought I was going to say the oval because you know I'm a NASCAR fan, and that's where you want to be if you're a spectator. Ovals are great. You can see all the action from one seating position. But as far as the driver is concerned, the most fun is on the road course by far. And we've got a great one an hour and a half from where I live, Moseport. And you know something? I never get down there. Anyhow, this week I want to talk about wiper systems. Pretty simple do-it-yourself change, and something that needs to be changed from time to time as they deteriorate. But you know, a lot of people have a real hassle when they go to do it. First of all, getting the right thing, getting the right length and the right style. So let's look at some of the different styles. There's 2 main styles of attachment and then a myriad of different lengths. So one of the first things you want to do when you're sizing them up is get your tape measure and check the length that's on your car. And if you're unsure about whether those are the original wiper blades, maybe have the parts guy look it up just to verify that you do have the right length on there. After you've figured out the length, and by the way, you should measure both because there may be a difference between driver's and passenger side. The next thing you want to do is figure out the method of attachment. Now this is a very common design right here. It's called the shepherd's crook, and you can see why they call it the shepherd's crook. It's a very common method of attachment, and what you're looking for in order to release that is that little tab underneath the wiper blade right there, and when you feed it back in, you push it up in there, you can hear it snap or click that it's all the way home. Now don't use a lot of force when you're trying to release these. Go very gently. If it doesn't come off easily, you're not doing something right, and if you can't get it off, consult somebody who knows what they're doing. Now the other common method of attachment is what we call the side pin, and that's just a 90-degree pin coming off the side of the wiper arm. And if we look in this little slot, you can see a spring in there. In order to get this style off, you just press down on that spring through the little slot there and force the wiper blade off with the fingers on your other hand. It's actually easier to do on the vehicle because the arm is held tight. I'm trying to support both. But you can see that the pin has an edge there for the spring to catch, and that's what prevents it from coming off. Pretty easy deal just to press that down. Now, there's a number of different wiper blades that attach to the side pin, and here's another style here where you would put the blade through and then drop this down in order to capture the pin. Now here's a type of blade that a lot of drivers prefer. That's called the winter blade, and they work well in the winter time because this thin skin of rubber over them prevents ice and snow from clogging up the blade and making it stiff. I don't like them myself, but a lot of drivers find they work well, and if they work well for you, by all means try them. But I'd restrict their use to the winter time only and put your regular ones back on in the summer. Another really good choice is these exact fit wiper blades they've come out with. No adapters required, and just as the name implies, they go on exactly the same way your original ones came off. And this is a quality metal frame blade, and it's reasonably priced, and you got some instructions on how to put it on. You know, if you've got good quality metal frame blades that are in good shape, if they're not bent or rusted, there's no reason why you can't go to the dealership and buy just the rubber wiping element. In most cases, they'll sell you a pair of those for less than the cost of one blade. And if your blade's in good shape, and you're careful and patient, you can feed them in there and get them working properly again. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2000.
If you're big into cars, check out motoringtv.com. And while you're at it, download a copy of Autopilot. Autopilot software searches out the matches to your automotive interests and makes the most of your online time.
Now, particularly you viewers out on the West Coast know that Ontario is the center of the known universe. Relax, I'm just kidding. But you know, it's been a terrible year for car crashes in this province. We had one huge one down by Windsor, over 80 cars involved, 7 fatalities and dozens of serious injuries. That was caused by people tailgating in the fog. And on a nearby stretch of the 401, there have been 13 fatalities in a 6-month period when normally you'd expect 2, 3 at the most. In that situation, well, people not taking a break after 2 hours behind the wheel, and of those 13 people, 7 of them weren't wearing a seatbelt. Now, Canadians, 90% of us are wearing seatbelts, but most of those people were Americans. But the second worst thing about those crashes, other than the fact they happened in the first place, is that the media kept referring to them as accidents. Well, to me, the word accident implies some kind of random happenstance, an act of God, something that can't be avoided. Car crashes aren't like that. Car crashes are caused by people doing something wrong, tailgating in the fog, or failing to do something right, wearing a seatbelt or taking a break after 2 hours. Now, words have power because they have meaning, and if we use the wrong word, it distorts the meaning. If people keep hearing that these things are accidents, they'll say, well, there's nothing I could have done, but there's always something that could have been done. So all media people, particularly traffic reporters, please stop using the A word. There's a crash on the freeway. There's a collision on the freeway. There's not an accident on the freeway. It's a small thing, but maybe it's a small step towards an eventual solution. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Well, it's not going to be easy getting these automotive journalists out of these new Subarus, but you know, it's no secret that Subaru is hoping that the new Legacy and Outback will continue a trend that has seen its sales figures more than triple over the past several years. As for me, well, I got to admit I've always had a soft spot for these all-wheel drive vehicles simply because they make so much sense, although it will be nice to see that 6-cylinder in the near future. But nevertheless, I'd suggest if you're driving a sport utility right now looking for a change, maybe you're tired of that truck-like drive, or maybe you just want some more fun in your driving experience, with all the safety features, these new Subarus could be the ticket. Anyway, Graham Fletcher will be putting them under the microscope on a future test drive. Make sure you join us for that as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
TSN's Motoring 2000 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas Car Care, the way it should be.